so when he offered Eve this forbidden fruit, which of course I use the apple, and we all know that nothing is ever told what the forbidden fruit was. I use the symbol of the apple in my work because we have always used the apple as a symbol of knowledge. And of course, because I'm in education and worked in education, that is something that I've always held in my hand as a understanding that you're grasping some knowledge. But that knowledge was not important for us to have because the Lord God had told Adam, do not eat of that particular knowledge. Well, they did bite into it. And for some reason, at that point, they were forever changed. And they ended up having a child, actually 2 children. And the way that it's worded makes me believe from my research that Cain was uniquely different. And there was some reason that once they ate, that God, the Lord God, actually told Eve that she would, have to conceive. And I was concerned, if you ate something, why would you turn around and curse somebody because they ate to have children in such a bad situation? So I felt like there was some kind of involvement there, and that it may have produced a relationship with her and the serpent, may have produced Cain, and that she turned around and had a relationship with Adam at the same time because she turned and gave the fruit to him. And so in doing my research, I went back to find out, is there a connection between Abel and Cain? And I have really felt that she actually had a sexual relationship with both of those beings, Adam and the serpent. And that the first child was actually the serpent's child named Cain, and that's why he was so jealous and selfish and all those kinds of things. And yet Abel was more like his father, who was Adam. And if you look on further into Genesis, you find that Adam's lineage never mentions Cain as being from his lineage. It starts out, once Cain kills Abel, it says that the only lineage that was from Adam was from Adam to Seth and thereon. So in following the story and trying to understand that there was 2 lineages, that if Satan was so important and he was so acknowledged in all these kind of things before he was thrown into the Garden of Eden to tempt Eve, there was something ongoing between he and God before all that happened. And so I wanted to understand just what is it that the serpent has and doesn't have that makes him go after humanity, because we're lower than what they were. And I found in the scriptures that Satan had actually Lucifer. He was Lucifer, who was in heaven, and he was the second in command. And he began having a little problem with God, and so, he didn't want to follow God's rule, and he wanted to be he wanted to be God. And so in Isaiah, I came across some things that talked about how much he wanted to be like God. And immediately there was something that came to mind, was that the breastplate of the priest that went into the Holy of Holies, they had to have 12 stones to be able to go in there and commune with the Holy of Holies there at the Ark of the Covenant. And so I was like, okay, there's 12 stones. And then I find that Satan only had 9 stones. And when I looked at those, the stones are set up similar. For example, in the 4 rows of stones for the breastplate was started off with sardis and then topaz and carbuncle. But the 4 stones that are mentioned for Satan, the first 3 are sardis, topaz, and diamond. So there was a change in the layout, or the code, let me say.
Okay.
So I knew that there was that something was going on here. That there was, Satan wanted to be like God, but he really is not. He is not like God. And so there was a fight there in trying to get information. And so that led me from the Cain lineage to find out that it was Cain's lineage who became the megalithic builders. They had knowledge of sciences and astronomy and all the things that had to do with what I call sacred knowledge or sacred sciences. Yet the Seth lineage from Adam, it never did that. It apparently stayed more in a shepherd kind of thing and looking after tilling the ground or whatever. And as we went through history, we had a perfect lineage in Genesis that goes from Seth all the way to Noah. And it specifically gives the information in very chronological order, and it gives their dates that they're born and that they died, that kind of thing. But when you look at Cain's lineage, it never tells that they died. It just says this is who they were and this is what they were capable of doing, which was kind of, I think, magnificent if you think about this was before the flood. Well, what happens is when you get into the final parts about what was going on and why God brought about the flood, you find out that the sons of God came upon the daughters of man. So here we are looking at who are the sons of God, and when you do the research, you find out they are the fallen angels. Well, what was Satan? He was a fallen angel. So that made a little more sense as to why he went after Eve in the garden, just as the sons of God went after the daughters of man on in chapter 6. And so you find from that information that God brought about the flood because things were getting really apparently bad. There was a lot of violence and a lot of things. And when we read prophetic scriptures, we find it constantly being brought up, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the end of time. So what was going on there was really interesting to me because I began to find especially old things that related back that showed that these people that were being born from a sexual relationship between fallen angels and mankind were actually producing something genetically unusual, and that was called a giant. And so we've been able to unearth archaeologically these great, huge beings. And it's kind of been kept quiet, but yet I've been able to find bits and pieces that are out there that show that even the dinosaur bones sometimes have been found next to these huge human footprints. And so this starts making a little bit more sense about serpents and dragons and huge giants and megalithic buildings. So apparently there was a lot of intelligence that was involved before the flood of Noah.
And this might be a good time for us to maybe take a little short break, Dr. Joy. I do have one comment. When you were talking about back in the Garden of Eden where, she ate of the fruit, and I do know from my own research and from just, the information that I have, is that the fruit of the tree that she ate, or she ate of that tree, was that they realized that they could procreate.
Right.
That was part of it. And so, interestingly enough, is that you are the first person, though, in your book and right now that has ever brought that up, is the fact that she actually had sex with both of them, because it did produce the two very different children. And I think that's very cool. When I was little and I was going to, I was going to Bible study when I was really young, and I never could understand that story, why Cain slew his brother Abel. I even as a young child, I never could wrap my brain around that. So
Right.
This is a really good answer for that. I mean, it really puts things into huge context, and in a very clear, concise way, in my opinion. So.